good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually just landed from Toronto a few hours ago, so if I fall asleep, just shake me and I'll wake up. So I've been studying digital going back for many, many years, too many years to be honest with you. But what I have also studied, aside from digital, is the impact of digital on us as a society. So I'm also a digital anthropologist, and in the last 20 years, and specifically the last 12, technology has been incredibly impactful on us as human beings, but also as executives, also as customers. And instead of looking at the customer base from the inside out, as we usually do, these are really interesting times of which we have to look from a human-centered perspective outward and then back into the organization. So it's a little bit counterintuitive. So I'm sure that you've used the word or heard the word, and many times today, digital transformation, and that is what's being defined as many things, whether it's the digital transformation of one department or the digital transformation of the entire enterprise. Essentially what's happening today is that businesses are having to modernize to compete in an era of consumerism that is nothing like it used to be. So that means we have to update not only our technology, but also upgrade our mindsets, our perspective, how we see the world, in order to both iterate and innovate for times that aren't done changing. They're only going to get crazier and crazier. Nothing says innovation like PowerPoint slides. So I have some for you. I publish every year a report on the state of digital transformation. I also study culture, because culture is, I think, the next big thing for innovation and digital transformation. And it is because for many years, say the last 50, 60 years, companies have focused on technology to scale. But now, what's greater than scale is agility. And not just agility in technology, again, agility with us. The ability to see things differently, the ability to make decisions faster, the ability to empower employees to think differently, to act differently, because these times require new ideas and new techniques and new ways of working to ensure that they come to life. I also study corporate innovation, because they're all sort of this Venn diagram. And when I bring all of the common challenges together in all of these fields of research, these are the things that I usually see where executives and companies are struggling. They don't understand how customers and employees are evolving. Corporate culture is too rigid to be agile. It's just too hierarchical. Leadership is not leading the way, so it's technically managing business structures and business models and processes and systems that are old and aging. That there's no sense of urgency to change because we've been successful, we've been growing, so we're getting all of the signals that we're doing things right. We don't know where to start all the time, and many times we use technology as the place to start, which can and can't work, but it has to be partnered with a human-centered approach. And then this new level of expertise and skill sets that we need, especially in an era of machine learning and artificial intelligence and robotics and blockchain and all kinds of other disruptive technologies that are challenging our own conventions. We live in what I call a time of digital Darwinism. So technology constantly evolves. I mean, just look at how far and how deep and how wide the cloud has become for us. It's very transformative. In fact, in the early days of digital transformation, moving to the cloud was what digital transformation represented. Now it's, of course, so much bigger. But also with the evolution of technology is the evolution of society. So we live in an era, right, where this thing, probably one of the greatest disruptions of our time, has been changing how we behave, how we interact every single day, slowly but surely. And so the idea of normal is changing. The idea of products, the idea of service, the business constructs that have made us successful in the past are now being challenged and being rivaled simply because we as human beings are becoming more empowered, more informed, more demanding, more elusive. So business as usual, conventions, the experience that we all have throughout our entire careers is now being challenged. So not only is this a great time for business innovation and technological innovation, but I actually believe that this is a time for personal innovation. How are you going to change how you think? How are you going to change how you work in order to ignite new ideas, to imagine new possibilities and opportunities where technology becomes an enabler for something greater, where you rewrite the model for business, where you live the future right now. In fact, as you heard, part of my job is also being a futurist, and a futurist isn't about predicting the future, because if I could predict the future, I would probably be on a yacht on the water and not here at the moment, to be honest, because it's a beautiful day outside. But being a futurist is playing out certain scenarios. So one such scenario that I play out constantly is customer experience. What does customer experience need to look like 10 years from now when everything to the consumer is seamless and on demand, where there are new circumstances and new services available to them? What does it look like to do business with that customer? That's one scenario. And one of the scenarios that's playing out tremendously right now is the word experience. And experience, we're using it a lot. We talk about customer experience, we talk about CX, but that word experience is something I want to talk about with you today. It's actually profound. It's a very profound word, and I think it will guide. I think you've heard themes of simplicity. It allows us to kind of get back to this sense of basics that we've long rushed and hurried past and maybe have overlooked. All big businesses are saying customer experience is the next competitive advantage. This is one of the things that I find in my digital transformation research, is that it is the #1 catalyst for accelerated digital transformation when all forces focus on the customer experience. But we live now in an era where a business or a brand is defined by the experiences that people have and people share. So if you think about it, when you're a customer, before you make a decision, you're all over the internet and you're looking to make a decision about what to do. And usually the things that guide you are not corporate websites or commercials or newspaper advertisements. They're the shared experiences of other people who are reviewing something, talking about something, and guiding you at a personal peer-to-peer level to take the next steps forward. So what I had learned in my research around digital transformation is that there are 6 stages, and they're not linear. The last stage is innovative and adaptive, so that idea of agility. To get there, there's a lot of stumbling. In fact, most of the time when I ask companies, where do you think you are in these 6 stages, they'll always look at the far right. When in fact, they're actually at the far left, because we're not really challenging our conventions or our beliefs of what a great customer experience could be, or what a great customer experience should be. And this is because of what I call the experience divide. When we make decisions about what's in the best interest for our customers, when we think about what type of technology to employ and how we're going to deploy it, when we think about staffing and resources and budgets, we are doing so from a business convention of yesterday. And it's not a problem. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It is just the reality that we're making decisions based on 50, 60 years of constructs as the world is rapidly changing. So what happens is when we're making decisions based on those standards, we're focusing on things like business outcomes, cost, profit, margins, shareholders, stakeholders, growth, sales, scale. All good things, right? Those are the building blocks of any good business. But the human side of your customer and also your employees are making decisions from a very different center of reference. They have a different normal. They're focused on things like mobile, and they're focused on convenience and lifestyle. They're worried about how many likes they got on a picture of food that they shared on Instagram. They're worried about very different things, and they're being conditioned to think differently when they make decisions about what to purchase or what business to be with. So that creates, over time, an experience divide. when we make decisions about customer experience from this center of reference, and customers are making decisions about the experience they want to have from this center of reference, and over time that divide starts to grow. And this is why you see so much disruption in things like retail, in the automotive industry, is simply because the worlds are growing apart. So even though customer experience is the #1 catalyst for digital transformation, only 35% of the companies around the world that I've studied have actually looked at the new customer journey. That number is down from 54% the year before. So we're making a lot of assumptions, a lot of big decisions around customer experience without even understanding who the customer is and what they value and what's important to them. And so I look at the state of designing customer experience in a metaphorical picture like this, where you have basically customer experience and all of the ways that we view it is represented by this woman up front. Whereas markets have evolved to this point where it's radically different. And many executives that I know would look at a picture like this and they would say, and many parents too, oh, this is exactly what's wrong with the world today. Nobody could be in the moment. They always have to have their phones out. And why are you even here if your phone is out? Just enjoy the moment. Like this sweet woman here in the front row. She's the only one in this picture enjoying the moment. But then you could argue, well, who's to say that everyone in this picture isn't enjoying the moment? They are experiencing it the way they want to experience it. It is theirs to choose. It is their experience to define. And that is a key for customer experience, is that it's a possessive. It's customers' experience. It's theirs. And so with a shift of perspective, we could look at this picture and we could say, wow, look at this selfish woman in the front, not sharing this incredible moment with all of her Facebook and Instagram friends that couldn't be there. Now they're totally missing out. So now, with the power of experience, the power of expression, the connectedness that we all have, the human network, as I call it, customer experience has to start with reimagining what a brand, what a business, what value proposition is today, because it isn't necessarily what it used to be. In the past, we would say this is our brand, this is our value proposition, these are our features, these are our product sets, whatever it is. And we would market and we'd advertise it and we'd sell it. And to many ways, in many extents, we still do that today. So when you always look at the best brands, the ones that are always at the top of the list, you see brilliant marketing, brilliant sales, brilliant products and innovation. But now there's something that I believe is more important than just customer experience. It's about all of these things combined. I wrote a book recently called X, just the letter X, because it's the combination of what you're about to see. Brand experience, customer experience, user experience, service experience, they all just share the letter X, which represents experience. So when you look at those brands that I just showed, and we look at, say, how they market their brands, you see that it's usually experiential. It's something that someone can aspire to. And so when we look at customer experience, it's a definition that I define this way, that it's the sum of all engagements a customer has with your company, not just in one moment, but all the moments combined. So if you have great sales, but a horrible website, and even worse customer service, you will never deliver a total customer experience that's the best. Because customer experience isn't really measured by Net Promoter Score, for example. It could be better measured by something like customer lifetime value. So this is where user experience starts to come in, because if we know now that the customer experience is defined in each moment they touch your business throughout their life cycle, then user experience becomes this idea of borrowing not just from design or digital design, but understanding human reactions, understanding intent, understanding how to get someone to get to the next step, feeling the way that we hope they want to feel. And that's where this comes down to the word experience. Believe it or not, writing a book about experience was complicated initially because I couldn't really find a common definition for the word experience to build upon so that we could all say, okay, I understand now why customer experience is important or brand experience is important. But quite simply, all it is an emotion. Experience is the emotion you feel in any moment. And it could be measured in how you react or how you feel later or how you tell somebody about it. And this is important because now what we're really talking about is using technology and then also strategy to innovate in ways that deliver better experiences that people feel, love, and want to share. When you combine all of those things, you see what we're doing is actually reverse engineering a brand by the experiences that people have and share. So every aspect of a business model, this is total digital transformation where you could just drop the word digital and just call it transformation. We're rebuilding businesses based on the experiences that we want people to have in totality. Reinventing processes, systems, services, all of these things can be reinvented for a modern time and a modern genre of business. So a good question for customer experience is, what is the experience we want people to feel? And how does that become the standard for every touch point? How do we collaborate around a common purpose or a common vision for what that experience should be? And how do we bring that to life? Not just digitally, but systematically. So the real world and the digital world, right? And the challenge that we have today is that so many parts of the customer journey are handled by so many disparate groups within our organization who may or may not use the same technology. So the customer, by default, is going to have a disjointed experience until we fix that. And so this is where I believe true innovation starts. I've been doing a lot of research with Google over the last four or 5 years, specifically looking how the mobile device is deconstructing the customer journey and how it's turning it into these micro moments and how people feel in those micro moments and what people are trying to do with intent. And we've been using machine learning as a way to try to start to predict behavior so that we can re-stitch together what a journey would look like. And what I realized in that work is that is exactly where innovation begins. Before you even get to technology, it was mindset. It was allowing myself to see that I was asking customers to conform to legacy processes, legacy systems, legacy services. And I wasn't the one trying to build bridges to them. And that's where most businesses are, is that we're expecting customers to just take these micro innovations that we have in the journey, but not looking at the journey holistically and finding ways, well, how can we modernize everything? How can we form cross-functional digital transformation teams to collaborate on fixing the journey where it's broken, because that's where we're always going to fail in experience, and modernizing it where we're not even delivering today. And that's the new normal that we're competing for. It's that how we see the world and how the world is evolving is in fact different. I gave it a funny name. I call it the law of accelerated societal and selfie disruption, which essentially just means that with every technology, but more importantly, every app, every service, every behavior that you start to build as a human being when you use new technology, it changes your expectations and your preferences whether you know it or not. And now every business competes with companies that were never in their competitive set. We look at our phones about 1,500 times per week. And that's on the low side. I'm sure our children look at their phones much more. But that adds up to about 177 minutes every day. And so for my next book, I've been studying the psychology of what's really happening to us. So a lot of the daily technology that we use was and has been designed to be addictive. So that's a whole other conversation we could have, but there's a reason why we just reach for our phone and scroll and keep scrolling with no real need. But what's happening in those moments is you're actually rewiring your brain. So it's called neuroplasticity. And what's happening is you're becoming less patient. You're becoming more informed. You're becoming more demanding. And subconsciously and eventually consciously, when you go to a company website, when you go to shop, when you look to do business with anybody, you're bringing in these mindsets of wanting to work the way it does in everything else in your life. In fact, one study that I did recently showed just how upset we get when the journey doesn't work like everything else. Because then you see it playing out in society everywhere. As a parent, I look at this picture and say, oh, come on, put your phones down, be in the party. But then I realize I sound old. All I can do is try to understand how to be relevant to a different generation of customer. This is a real shower curtain that was introduced in March this year. Part of me wasn't even surprised. Of course there's a shower curtain for this. What I was surprised about is why there are so many pockets. Why do you need so many pockets? I don't know, maybe one for each person in the family, or maybe better angles for the selfies that you're going to take in the shower. Or the fact that when we think about it, we have some real hardcore issues that aren't even really that important. Because if we lose battery or signal or we don't have the passcode for the internet, we actually start to feel disconnected and there's something wrong and maybe your palms start to get sweaty. And this is a real sidewalk in China. I spend so much time in airports. I want this in every airport. Because we don't move as fast as we think we are when we're messaging and walking. Now, this is another metaphor, but this is also a real intersection in the Netherlands. And this is a metaphor for how we approach customer experience today. We're building on the ideas of yesterday, when in fact what we also need to do is open new doors to tomorrow, right now. So what was happening in the Netherlands was that, well, people are walking and they're walking right into the street and they're getting hit by bicycles and cars. So I want you to think about a conversation at the traffic engineering department, right? It's probably not unlike the conversations that you're having in your customer experience strategy sessions. I used to joke, say, I tried to be innovative once, but I got stuck in meetings all day. So the conversation goes like this. Hey, Bob, we've got a problem at the intersections. Too many citizens are on their mobile devices and they're just walking into the street and they're getting hit by bicycles and cars. It's a travesty. What are we going to do? Well, Brian, I think what we should do is just chalk that up to natural selection. If they're not going to try to save their life, why, it's not my job. So you think that they would want to save their own lives? Put the phone down. It's as simple as that. I don't think it's as simple as that, Bob. I just don't. Maybe what we should do is then move the light from here to the sidewalk so that they can say, oh, I'm going to save my own life. And so it's a counterintuitive decision and process that helps get to a new type of solution for a different type of customer, right? Whether we agree with this customer or not is not the point. It's just that it's different. And this is where all of this begins, because it's not going backwards. This is a real guy, not just having lunch outside, but he's having lunch in some other world. I don't know what world he's in, but he's certainly content. And what you see here is this crossroads of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, where I'm sitting there with my mobile phone taking a picture of this guy in virtual reality, but this guy behind him is sitting in the restaurant with no device, looking at everybody going, where am I going? where am I? What year is this? And so what has happened is what I call, we've created a market of accidental narcissists. Because technology is so quick and so convenient and so empowering and so connected, that we are the center of our own universe. Every app, every service that we use is teaching us that we're the center of our own universe. I mean, think about when you post something on Instagram or Facebook and you don't get a lot of likes and you feel kind of sad and you even consider deleting it because it's kind of embarrassing that it didn't get a lot of likes. That's the mindset of which we are customers now. We're starting to bring that. It's becoming more and more pervasive every single day. So what happens is we become more informed, connected, demanding, empowered, elusive. But also, every system that starts to make the customer experience better in any industry is now raising the bar for every industry. It's the literal definition of the Amazon effect. Every Amazon customer will tell you that Amazon has changed their shopping behavior. For the better or for worse, I don't know. But so has Uber, or here in Paris, Car Privé. All of these services are teaching you you can have what you want faster, more personalized, more conveniently. A couple swipes and a whole integrated experience is now at your fingertips. In fact, we've become so impatient, one of the things that I had to study recently was how long is too long to wait for an Uber before you open Lyft or before you open Car Privé or any service. Because we as customers feel that we shouldn't have to wait more than a certain amount of minutes for a car to come to where I am standing at this moment to pick me up and take me to where I need to go and have the whole thing seamlessly transacted. In New York, that number is 6 minutes. You will open a competing app if a car is further than 6 minutes away. 10 years ago, you would have thanked the Lord that a car was going to come to you in New York. We didn't see that coming. We didn't see that happening, nor do people realize that they probably do that. But that's why now, when it comes to customer experience, we are competing against Uber. We are competing against Netflix. We're competing against Amazon. We're competing against Tesla, Apple. We're competing against every company that is raising the bar for customer experience, that give customers a taste of what good service, not just in one moment, but all the moments, feels like. So I joke and I say, hey, we're designing customer experience strategies for people who like to vomit rainbows. And it's very true. It's sad and true. But this is our reality. That means that we have to get into this mindset, the design mindset, that is not us, at least in our work life. Right? Because when we go to work, we're caught up in all the processes that defined how we work yesterday, that defines what success was for yesterday. In fact, success is often a poor teacher because it lulls us into complacency. It makes us more iterative. It makes us less likely to want to take risks because we want to improve and scale what it is that we have and what it is that we know. So if you think about the customer journey today, I call it the cluster funnel. It's a mess. It's a hodgepodge of all kinds of different touch points that were designed in different genres that we haven't really reimagined because we haven't challenged ourselves to reimagine it. We haven't challenged ourselves to reinvent something because it works, or it used to work, but maybe it doesn't work like it used to. And so when you think about the customer journey, what's starting to happen now is that people are so empowered, they're finding ways to hack it. This is a lot of the research that I'm doing with Google is how are they finding things to purchase. How are they making decisions? How are they finding businesses to do business with? And this is not just business to consumer. This is business to business. This is healthcare. This is finance. This is every industry. Even how we talk as companies is outdated. Think about those emails you get, or the marketing, or the sales collateral, or a website that has paragraphs of texts. The people don't have time. It hurts if they have to read too much. They want to move quickly. I mean, think about the last time you made a purchase decision without consulting YouTube. I think YouTube has become one of the most important touch points of anything, really. I even studied robotic arm assemblies, and YouTube was a factor in that decision-making cycle. But we're also becoming more impatient online than we are in real life, which is interesting because now it's starting to spill from online into the real world. We're 100 times more impatient online than we are physically. And that's starting to change. We're starting to also become impatient physically. But think about the website. This is a real headline where the magazine decided to put a picture of me in the headline that made me look like some dark overlord. But it's a real headline, and it was a conversation about what do you think is the biggest problem with the customer journey today? I said, most websites are still stuck in 1995 because we haven't taken an opportunity to say, well, what should a website be in 2018? If you had to invent a website today, knowing what you know about how crazy fast customers are and what kinds of experiences they have, that they like to swipe on Tinder and they like to endlessly scroll through feeds, how would you design a website for that brain? How would you design a parking sign for that brain? You would design it completely differently. And so that's where we get caught in this iteration versus innovation trap. I wrote a report on mobile customer and user experience design and how mobile was essentially just an iteration of the desktop web. So we were just trying to make it fit on a smaller screen. And a friend of mine, his name is Tom Fishburne, after he read that report, he drew this cartoon. So I thought I would share it with you. I'm stalling so that we can all figure out exactly what's wrong with this picture. Think about even apps and mobile sites and the way that we design it. I mean, you compete with Google, you compete with Apple, and we don't necessarily see the world that way because we keep looking at case studies from people in our industry. But all we do is get in this cycle that is the opposite of innovation. That when you study the psychology and the emotions of experiences as people go through their customer journey, they're actually upset and they're anxious, they have anxiety. Just even delivering a good experience, not even innovating, just delivering a good experience is a competitive advantage today. That's how sad things are. And then also the importance of video, that it's how critical it's become in every consumer journey, especially on mobile, where most journeys in every industry begins, on the mobile device. So now we have to reimagine the cluster funnel into a new type of journey for customer experience that's endless. I mean, think about a big purchase you might have made. Did you stop researching after you purchased it? Most people continue the research process because they want to validate their decision. And then over time, they want to look at new ways to maybe unlock potential or new possibilities with what it is that they bought. So with Google, what we're doing is we're defining a lot of this research of what we call the age of assistance or the intent economy. It's looking at ways to not reinvent the whole journey overnight, because that would take too long and too many resources, but we need to start. We need to start somewhere. And so a lot of this is really focusing on the mobile journey because you don't have to break a lot of things to do that. You just have to build moment by moment. Because when you study what's happening, you see that customers are not only informed, they're well advised. They research everything. They're impatient. They want things now. They want information now. They want you to understand what they're asking or what they're looking for without them having to express it, which is setting the stage for dynamic content and dynamic sites. And their expectations are through the roof. Right here, right now, well-advised customers. 90% of customers will pick up their smartphone or their mobile device when they begin any customer journey. And 73% of them will make a decision based on whatever company was most useful, which is the opposite of the way the journey used to be. It used to be that we went into the consideration with a set of companies and then narrowed it down. Now it's the opposite. We go in totally open-minded. We want to be informed, we want to be engaged, and then we make decisions based on who is most useful. In fact, searches for best toothbrush for me has surged 200% in the last year. Who has time to research a toothbrush? Clearly, a lot of people. And it's not only toothbrush. Best shower curtain for me has also skyrocketed in the last year. A lot of best and for me are part of these searches now. As if we're supposed to magically understand who you are in order to present the best toothbrush for you. But that's where we are. So utility is the new viral. And what essentially this all means is that customer experience is about connecting the dots between your evolving customer and where you are today, and finding the most immediate opportunities of iteration and innovation to learn, to unlearn, and to improve. I call it the relevance gap. It's about asking different questions. Since we're not technically our customer when we're at work, it's asking different questions that bring us closer to them, because they're not going to keep coming back to us. And those different questions lead to different answers. And the good news is that we have machines who can figure this stuff out for us as well. We just have to feed it differently in order to get different output. Because there's what we think people want, and then we try to make that better and more scalable. And then there's what people really want or don't know that they want yet, but once they know it, they can't live without it. And essentially gives you new opportunities to add value throughout this new customer journey that's immediately measurable, actionable, insightful, improvable. So it's all there. It's just a matter then of figuring out how digital transformation and our investments in technology allow us to see differently and work differently, because when it comes to experience, it's essentially a gift. Right? Just think about how connected, over-informed we are, that when you have an opportunity, when you have somebody's attention, it's a gift. And we've taken that gift for granted for many years because we could. There wasn't a lot of choice before. People didn't have as much technology or as much empowerment. Things were a lot more linear and a lot more hierarchical before, but now it's not. So when you have someone's attention to deliver a great experience, what is it that you want them to feel? And using this X template for reimagining your approach to markets from an experiential standpoint, your group, and then also cross-functionally. I think the next big thing here for customer experience is designing what I call an experience style guide. Today we have a brand style guide. We don't have an experience style guide that defines what we want people to feel, what we want them to express. And if you look at the magic of Disney, at any Disney park or any Disney movie, that's exactly what they do through a storyboarding format. There's a great story of Airbnb. They hired a Pixar storyboard artist to come in. Many years ago, the Airbnb experience was not good. For hosts, it was horrible. For guests, it was horrible. And they were still, though, promising this great Airbnb experience, so there was a disconnect between what they promised and what was actually happening. So they took all the data, and they brought in this Pixar storyboard artist, and they worked on processing that data and then turning it into these storyboards that told the story to executives in a way that they could empathetically understand what was actually happening, because they weren't living it. And I think that's a challenge that most executives have, is that they're not living their business the way that their customers do. And so when we talk about innovation, we're sort of removed. We're not really there. And so what was really important was that they had found that there was a journey for their hosts, and there was a journey for their guests. And through the storytelling of data, they were able to get executives to buy into new possibilities, to reinvent the entire brand, which I think 4 or 5 years ago you saw Airbnb, even as a young startup, go through this massive rebranding, essentially reinventing the whole experiential model for the business around how people feel and why they would align with that brand. And you're starting to see this play out in other areas. So Apple is one of them, of course, but Philips has what they call an experience flow. So sort of like a style guide, but they're using that experiential standard for every touch point, from the web to packaging to customer service scripts. All of this is being integrated slowly but surely. So I'll leave you with a few points that I just published in a report recently. Is that the best companies are constantly mapping the customer journey, and they're looking at ways to create smoother, more integrated customer experiences. Most of them are starting with mobile because there's more data, there are more signals, there's clearer intent there, and they're able to execute in pilots quickly. They're engaging in deep consumer research to get a unified view of the consumer or the customer. And this is really important because in an era of machine learning, you have access to insights that we didn't have before. They're cultivating new skill sets and mindsets to be able to approach work differently. They're incentivizing employees differently. They're looking at reinventing human resources in a lot of this work so that they can be motivated and reviewed and incentivized much faster. That kind of gives them the sense of comfort for taking risks, which is the opposite of what we usually feel today. And they're looking at opportunities to invest in a cross-functional pilot. What if? Why can't we? They're asking different questions and then executing on it, testing and learning, sharing, because that sharing creates momentum and excitement. This is the way I feel about it, is it's not disruption that we should worry about that's going to drive our customers away. It's mediocrity. It's taking all of these gifts of technology and all of these gifts of mindsets and openness and experiences and delivering something based on yesterday's standards. It's not good enough anymore. I'm an optimist. I'm a hopeless optimist. I believe this is a time where we can see the future for delivering opportunities for us to reinvent what it is that we do and why we do it. Every great technology implementation, every great story of digital transformation, every great story of innovation always starts with purpose. Why are you doing this? And when you can give purpose, a human-centered reason, because you want to matter to someone else, because you want to make something special for someone else, not just in one moment, but overall, there's nothing more powerful than that. Because I don't believe anybody in this room woke up and got out of bed and said, you know what, I think I just want to be mediocre today. This is why I'm so excited about right now, is that the future of business is not invented. It's not written. When you take a human-centered perspective, it's being written right now by what you see differently and what you do differently. Thank you very much.